Thank you for joining, everybody. This is actually, they were talking about like a conference hall. I've done countless presentations in my home office on Zoom in like a tiny window. This is far wider, and doing like tricks to put, my slides in my background and all that sort of stuff. But this is a far more amazing, experience. So, as I said, my name is Adam Schuella. I'm head of emerging technology for Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, also we lovingly called FCAT. In FCAT, our mission is to ignite emerging ideas and propel Fidelity forward. We do this by researching across 3 different vectors. So number 1, emerging technologies. But we also look at socio-cultural trends. And then finally, we also look at emerging businesses. And what I think is unique about FCAT is that we don't just meet with different companies and talk with lots of people and read lots of books and white papers and all that sort of stuff. We actually build things there as well, right? So you get one level of understanding when you watch a video or when you read a white paper, but you get a completely different level of understanding when you roll up your sleeves and you start building with this stuff. So, talk today is our world is blurring. Especially when you're thinking about like emerging technologies, it's moving really fast, right? So you have, it's almost like awe-inspiring how fast technology moves. So I'm gonna recount what, I remember when I got a computer, and the computer had a whole gig of memory with it. Remember, like a huge hard drive of 1 gig, and I'm like, how am I ever going to fill up a gig of space with all my stuff, right? I think I probably filled up a gig right now, just in talking here. I can't even go to a bargain, electronics store and find a hard drive that has a gig on it anymore, right? They're all like enormous. So technology moves incredibly fast. But it's not just technology moving fast that is causing the world to blur. If we take a few steps back, right, it's a few other things that are causing this blur as well. So number 1, industries are blurring, right? And how we interact with these industries is blurring as well. Like humans and machines are also blurring, and along that whole spectrum. And then the third one is physical and digital is also blurring. And I'm going to start with that one because I think that one's probably the one that we're all most comfortable with. I'm going to start with this. These are pigs. A little while ago, I took, with my wife, I took my youngest daughter, we went to a farm. There were pigs there. They're smelly. They're kind of cute. They were eating. I didn't really want to touch them because I didn't want to lose a finger while they were eating, right? But there are these visceral, physical things that exist. But we've digitized them, right? You can trade hogs, right, on an exchange. So this is a normal sort of thing for us. We've been doing this for quite some time. But now one of the things that we're able to do is not just digitize the hogs, but you can actually digitize the farmland, right, that these animals are on. So there's a site that's called Acre Trader, right? So not only is it digitized, right, but it's fractionalized, and it's made accessible, right, to a whole slew of different people and investors. But that's not the only thing that's digitized, right? I might not know much about farms and farming and what would make a good farm or not a good farm, but I do like cars, right? But I can't really necessarily afford the car that's in this picture over here. I wish I could, but I can't. But I know a lot about these, and I want to participate in it. And you know what? These assets are fractionalized, and I can participate in these assets as well. And there are platforms online that allow us to be able to do this. It's not just cars, it's art as well. So again, I might want a Picasso or a Hockney or music and that I can't afford, right? But I can't afford the whole thing, but I can participate in just a small piece of these things, and these are tangible assets that are accessible now to the average investor. Now I'd like to talk about the digital assets, the assets that are born digitally natively, right? So NFTs. Now, I don't want to get into the debate about their monetary value and whether or not NFTs are just Beanie Babies on the blockchain or something along those lines, right? But this new asset class provides entirely new structures that we're able to participate in. So this gentleman in the front, he has a white shirt, and he could create a piece of art, right, and sell it to me, but like a physical piece of art. And I can take this, and he'll sell it to me for, let's say, $1,000. I can then hold on to this piece of art for $1,000 and then sell it for $100,000 a few years later because he's a fantastic artist, right? But he doesn't get anything from that sale. Well, with these NFTs and these smart contracts, you can actually write in the ability to take royalties on future sales as part of the whole deal in that first purchase, right? So if I bought it for $100 or $1,000 and then sell it for $100,000, the original artist is able to take a portion of that as well. Another thing that's particularly interesting is in the gaming space or in that virtual space, I could buy a pair of shoes in the virtual world that's tied to my physical footsteps in this physical world, right? So I could start walking around and my phone might be counting my steps and my shoes in the virtual world are wearing out, right? So these are NFTs that are able to sort of degrade as I'm using them. So it's that connection between that physical and the digital. So this digital world, right, there's a whole slew of, there's some real assets in this digital world, right? So the gaming industry is a $100 billion industry that is thriving, right? The average age in the US for gamers is between 35 and 44 years old, right? And you can get these assets in there, like a dress, for example, that is released by a real designer, let's say Gucci or something along those lines. Actually, Gucci does do this. And they're selling these digital dresses for almost about the same price as what they're selling the physical ones for. So you could buy a Gucci dress and stick it on your avatar for $2,000 or more than $2,000 or something along those lines. So there are some real significant assets that are showing up in this digital space. So that's sort of the blurring between physical and digital. Now what I'd like to start talking about is the blurring between human and machine. So in the financial services industry, we've started to experience this already, right? We've taken some steps along this spectrum. If you think about robo-advisors, for example, right? So robo-advisors, it's an AI model, it's an AI, a machine, basically, at the end of the day, right? And it's doing the data crunching, and it's doing the, it's pulling in all the data and doing the analysis, right? But the human is delivering it. We have these hybrid models now, right, where the machine does the digital stuff, and the human does the nuance, and the human does the guidance, and the human does the empathy side of these things, all for a premium. Now, these AI models are actually starting to expand a little bit, right? So they're going not just with just these pure data for the financial models and things like that. It's actually able to do sales assistant things as well. So within Fidelity Labs, there is a startup called Catchlight, and the CEO is actually in the audience, and we'll be talking later this week. But they have a digital sales assistant that will help you figure out what your next best move is. Who's the next person that we should call? What is that conversation? What should that conversation be like? And they have all of these different things. So what I want to do is slide all the way over to the human, the physical side, the biology side right now. So this woman on the screen behind me right here, she has a synthetic DNA sequencer, right? So DNA, this is the core of our biology, and she is able to create synthetic DNA. Biologists also have the ability to put clusters of cells on chips, so you could create basically a mini lung on a chip and do testing and things like that. So biology is even creating this blur, sort of pushing the edges on what is alive even. So AI is doing this as well. So this is a very, very old black and white picture. And there is a site online called Deep Nostalgia. And I can take these digital pictures and upload them to the internet and make them come alive. So think Harry Potter, think the pictures that are on the wall, think the wizard playing cards that they had. And it basically is taking old still pictures and giving them movement and giving them facial expressions and emotions, right? Like having people smile in them. I actually took, just even a few days ago, I took my grandparents' wedding pictures. They were black and white wedding pictures. They had a whole bunch of them. And I started feeding them into this. And it elicited emotion, right? Like, I don't know, it was, in certain cases, it was weird, right? Like, because these are still images that have been still in my life for a very, very, very long time. And now, all of a sudden, they're moving, right? My grandmother was smiling and sort of looking around, right? Like, which was a really interesting thing to experience. All of these AI and these machines, it's really hard to tell. It's starting to get really hard to tell as to what's real and what's not. Even with this eye. Is this eye a human eye? Or is this eye a digital, graphical, drawing or whatever that came out of a gaming engine to represent my avatar in one of these digital or physical worlds? Or is this the eye of my of an avatar that I've put that represents me, basically that's built off of my own thoughts and decisions? Where I think a few years ago you saw Google, and they had created this AI that was able to call and make a haircut appointment for you, and it would just call and have a normal conversation with someone. Well, what if this is the eye of my avatar in one of these virtual worlds that's basically acting on all the things that I don't really want to do? And I'm actually going to take this even one step further. What if this is the AI representation of me, right, even after I've passed, right, even after I've died? And it has my, sort of thoughts and my decision-making skills. There are models out there right now that are able to do that. And now I could, maybe declare that I want my model after I've gone to make all of these decisions for, my family or whatever it is. Or it could be used as consultative purposes, or for consultative purposes, right? So what would Adam do in this sort of situation when Adam's not here, and be able to actually ask that and see what that person might be, that person might want to do? So the next area that we're going to talk about is the blurring of industry lines and how we interact with these industries, and even that is blurring. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about a Web3 example that I had a few months ago. So for those of you that don't know, I'm going to try to define Web3 relatively quickly. So if Web 1.0 was read-only, right? Web 2.0, I'm just consuming information. Web 2.0 is read-write, right? Think social. I'm able to now sort of put stuff up onto the internet. And Web 3.0 is sort of read, write, own. So now I have the ability to own parts or have ownership online. But really, truly, what does that mean? I think I read like 100 articles on this, and I didn't really understood what it meant until I participated in it, right? So I went online, I had these tokens, I deposited these tokens into a protocol. I was very proud of myself, right? So I went all the way through and I was able to get these tokens into that protocol. But when I deposited the tokens into the protocol, what happened was I was given the option to insure my deposit. I was like, well, that's interesting. So I clicked on it. And when I clicked on it, it gave me like 4 or 5 different options of different protocols that I could use to then insure my deposit. And when I did that, I chose one of them at random, basically. And it took me to a whole new site with a whole new protocol. And the protocol basically gave me the option to take either side of that position. So I could either, if I wanted to, insure the deposit that I just made of the tokens into the protocol, or I could take the other side. I could put up collateral, and I could take the insurance premiums. Now, that is completely different from anything else that I've experienced sort of in that space, right? Insurance never gives me the option, like our traditional insurance never gives me the option to sort of take the other side, right? And this was giving me that option, and not only was it giving me the option, but then I would also get governance tokens, right? And now I could start to influence the direction that this protocol is taking, right? So it is a completely different sense, right, than just depositing money into a custody account or something along those lines, right? I now actually can influence the direction of all these different things. So the last thing that I want to talk about in this section is embedded finance. So what's the definition of embedded finance? Financial capabilities or entire product lines that are sold as a service or embedded into other experiences. And if you go back and you think about, I talked about Web 1.0. Web 1.0, what did it take in order to be able to get a website online, right? If I had a store and I wanted to be able to put that store online, it was a lot of work. It wasn't necessarily something that I could do in 2 seconds, right? Now, if I want to put a store online, you could probably do it in an afternoon, right? And it's because, the old days I had to program in HTML and write everything out. Now what's happening is I could just drag and drop all these different little components. Well, this embedded finance idea is that same thing with all of these different components, right? I can take KYC from one element and tie it with, collateral management from another, right? So we have all of these different bits and pieces that we're able to put together relatively quickly to create new and basically emerging ideas, right? And launch businesses relatively quickly at relatively low cost relative to what it used to take a long time ago, right? So if, again, I'm from Fidelity, it took millions of dollars to set up those systems and a significant amount of time. Now we're able to turn these things on with APIs. So the world is blurring, right? And hopefully, you got a little bit of a sense of all the different types of things that we're looking at, and some of it is confusing, right? It's even confusing to us. But this confusion actually illustrates opportunities, right? These are all areas that are incredibly interesting and ripe for innovation and collaboration and all that sort of stuff. And the one thing, if there's one, I think I have 1 minute left. If there's one last thing that I want people to walk away with is that this is not an activity that is that you could just do from a chair, right? And sit back and just sort of watch all of this happen, and then think that you're learning and understanding by just sort of being a bystander, right? This is a very, very active. This is a very active activity that you have to engage in. You have to experiment, you have to roll up your sleeves, and you have to try this stuff. So with that, thank you very much. And here's the obligatory, I think, Fidelity Oh, there we go. Important information that I always have to put up at the end of the slide. So thank you very much, everybody.